Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're digging into the Karen Reed case. A really complex story. A death in the snow, a girlfriend facing a murder charge, but a defense that's claiming a cover-up. Your sources paint a picture of a trial just full of twists.
It really is something. On the face of it, maybe it seems straightforward, but it's clearly become this huge national focal point. It really touches on nerves about the justice system, community ties, that sort of thing, doesn't it?
It absolutely does.
Yeah.
So our mission here is to unpack the key evidence, the main arguments we've seen so far. We want to focus on those inconsistencies, the questions that, make this case so captivating.
Good plan. Where should we start? It's a lot to cover.
Let's start with something, well, frankly a bit bizarre, the painted rock.
Ah, yes. The Albert Rock. That definitely caught people's attention during the jury view, didn't it?
It did. So this rock, painted with Albert on it, just appears in the yard when the jury visits the scene. But the weird part is, reports say it wasn't there before.
Right. And then, almost as quickly as it appeared, poof, it was gone the next day. Very strange.
But how significant is it, legally speaking?
Well, that's the key thing. The judge actually made it very clear, and both sides agreed. Apparently, the jury was told explicitly this rock was not there when John O'Keefe died.
Okay, so it's a weird side note, maybe adds to the whole atmosphere, but doesn't actually change the facts of that night.
Exactly. More like a strange footnote in a very complex story.
Got it. Okay, shifting back to the legal side of things. The defense hit a bit of a roadblock recently.
Yes, that's right. And it kind of sets the stage for the trial moving forward. Karen Reed had petitioned the U.S. Supreme Court trying to get the case dismissed.
And that didn't work out for them.
No, the petition was denied. So that was really her last major legal attempt to stop the trial before it started. Your sources confirm the trial is definitely moving ahead now.
Right, so the trial is where the action is. And like so many trials these days, digital evidence, it's front and center, isn't it?
Yep.
Let's talk about Ian Whiffin's testimony.
Oh, absolutely. Digital forensics, pulling data off phones, it's become so crucial. Whiffin, the prosecution's expert, he was really put under the microscope during cross-examination.
The defense lawyer, Bob Lacey, really zeroed in on the phone location data, didn't he? Specifically, that little window of time, 12:25 to 12:37 a.m.
That time frame is just, it's everything. Because both sides are using that exact window to argue whether John O'Keefe went inside the Albert house or if that's when Karen Reed allegedly hit him with her car. The reliability of the data then is, well, it's critical.
Because if that data isn't reliable, it kind of blows a hole in the prosecution's timeline for the hit and run, yeah?
Precisely. If you can't trust the phone's location during those crucial minutes, their whole narrative gets shaky.
So what was the specific challenge? I read something about a photo in Whiffin's report.
Right. The defense pointed to this image, and it showed a big white circle indicating the phone's possible location. The thing is, this circle covered most of the Albert house.
Which seems to contradict Whiffin saying the phone never went inside.
Exactly. That was the defense's point. How did Whiffin explain that?
Well, Whiffin's take, according to your source, was that the big circle meant the data had really low accuracy at that moment. And it only lasted for like 5 seconds.
Okay, so he's saying it was basically a fleeting blip, not precise enough to say definitively the phone was inside.
That was his argument. It shows how messy this digital data can be to interpret,
Definitely. Then there was the whole thing about the steps recorded on John's phone.
Yeah, 84 steps after arriving. And the flagpole, where the defense suggests maybe he was dropped off, was only about 72 feet from the door. Seems like enough steps to get there.
It does seem close. But the prosecution had a counter, didn't they?
They did. They argued, well, if he walked to the house, wouldn't he have walked back if he didn't go in? Where are the steps for the return trip?
Ah, the missing return steps. So their point is the lack of those steps suggests he didn't walk away on his own.
Makes sense as an argument. What about the phone's temperature? That came up too.
Yeah, the defense floated the idea that the phone cooled down slower than expected because maybe it was insulated, perhaps lying on John's body.
And Whiffin conceded that was possible.
He did. He agreed it was a possibility. But then he also stressed that phone temperature doesn't actually tell you where the phone is.
Right. So maybe it hints at something, but it doesn't pinpoint location. The defense probably saw that as chipping away at the data certainty again.
Probably. And one more layer, the timestamps. There was a discrepancy, right?
Yeah, Whiffin explained Google timestamps can vary a bit, but the defense highlighted that another forensic tool, Axiom, still showed a key timestamp as 2:27 a.m.
And that 2.27 time is crucial because
That's when the defense claims Jen McCabe did that infamous Google search. How long to die in the cold?
Right. So having another software confirm that timestamp adds weight to the defense's timeline for the search, potentially undermining McCabe's credibility later.
So after all that technical back and forth, was there a clear winner? Did Whiffen hold up, or did the defense score major points?
You know, it's really tough to call. Your source suggests it was kind of a draw. Whiffen stuck to his expert opinions, but the defense definitely managed to raise reasonable questions about how absolutely certain you can be based only on that phone data.
So more ambiguity sown.
Exactly. It became a battle over interpretation, not a knockout blow for either side.
Okay, so moving from the digital realm, the next big witness was Jen McCabe, someone everyone was waiting to hear from.
Oh, absolutely. She's so central. She was with Karen Reed the night John disappeared. She was there when he was found. And of course, her phone is ground zero for that Google search controversy.
Let's just nail that down again. The search. How long to die in the cold? Prosecution says 6:24 a.m. Defense says way earlier, 2:27 a.m.
And if the defense is right about 2:27 a.m., it implies Jen McCabe knew something was terribly wrong hours before she claims she did. It completely changes the timeline.
And didn't she get sworn in at a symbolic time?
Yeah, this is one of those details that just sticks out. She was sworn in to testify at exactly 2:27 p.m., the exact time the defense alleges she made that search. Coincidence? Maybe, but it got noticed.
Wow. Okay. And how does she come across on the stand initially?
Your source described her as pretty calm, composed, actually. Made eye contact with the jury, presented herself as, just a regular person caught up in this awful situation.
What did she say about her relationship with John O'Keefe and with Karen Reed?
She said she was friends with John, mainly through their kids being friends, liked him. With Karen, she described it as friendly, but not super close. More like they hung out when John was around.
Okay, let's walk through her version of that night. It started at the Waterfall Bar.
Right. She went there after her daughter's basketball game. Just a casual get-together with friends, family. John and Karen showed up later around 11 p.m. She mentioned hugging them both, which apparently lines up with video evidence.
And then the plan shifted to go to the Albert House.
Well, initially, Karen apparently suggested another place, D&G Pizza, owned by Chris Albert. But the group decided to head over to Brian and Nicole Albert's place at 34 Fairview Road instead for Brian Jr.'s birthday.
Did Karen and John go right away?
No, Jen said Karen initially said no thanks, but then they did end up driving over later. Jen testified she gave John directions, using a landmark, the house of someone John used to date, Bella's mom, to help him find it.
Okay, so they arrive at 34 Fairview. What did Jen say she saw?
She testified she saw a dark SUV pull up, assumed it was Karen's Lexus, said she saw it stop near the house, then it moved closer to a flagpole in the yard, and then kind of further down the street. She mentioned looking out the window a few times and seeing these movements.
Did she try to contact John?
Yeah, she texted him like, "Is that you?" and asking about parking. But crucially, she testified he never came inside the house.
So after seeing the SUV move around, what did Jen do?
She left around 1:45 a.m., she said, to drive some of Brian Jr.'s friends home, came back, went to bed. She mentioned doing a quick Google search about her daughter's basketball team before falling asleep.
And the next morning, how did she find out something was wrong?
She got a call from John O'Keefe's niece. Said she could hear Karen in the background sounding hysterical, saying John hadn't come home, that she'd left him at the Waterfall Bar.
Okay, so Karen initially said she left him at the bar, not Fairview.
That's what Jen McCabe testified Karen was saying initially, yes. Described Karen as really distraught, hard to understand.
What was Jen's reaction?
She said she went into mom mode, started calling around, trying to figure out where John might be, but then she remembered seeing Karen's SUV at Fairview the night before.
So that triggered something.
Right. So she called Karen back.
And what happened on that call?
This is where it gets really crucial. Jen testified that Karen started sounding confused, asking things like, "Did I hit him? Could I have hit him?" And that's when Karen mentioned her taillight was broken.
Wow. Okay. Did Karen then come over to Jen's house?
Yes, Jen said Karen arrived, still frantic, screaming, apparently. Jen's husband apparently told her to quiet down. Then another friend, Carrie Roberts, showed up, and the three women decided to go over to John's house to look for him.
Anything unusual happened at John's house?
Jen mentioned finding it odd that Karen didn't take her shoes off inside John's house because he apparently had a strict no-shoes rule. Minor detail, maybe, but she noted it. Also said she tried comforting John's niece, who was upset.
And then they went back towards Fairview Road.
Yes. As they approached 34 Fairview again, Jen said Karen suddenly spotted John's body in the snow on the lawn. said Karen jumped out of the car and ran to him. Jen recalled Carrie Roberts saying something like Karen was acting batshit crazy.
How did Jen describe finding John?
She said he looked frozen, like a statue. She testified that she then called 911, got blankets from Carrie's car, and started doing chest compressions while Karen tried mouth-to-mouth.
So her testimony during this direct examination, it basically matched what she'd said before.
Yeah, your source indicates her story on direct was pretty consistent with her previous statements. But everyone knew the real fireworks were expected during the cross-examination.
And by all accounts, that cross-examination by Alan Jackson was explosive.
Oh, absolutely. The defense came out swinging. Jackson immediately went on the attack, challenging inconsistencies, pressing her really hard on her timeline, her statements, everything.
Where did he start? What was the first big challenge?
Straight for the jugular. That Google search. How long to die in the cold? He asked her point blank if she did it, reminding her the defense believes it happened at 2:27 a.m., not 6:24 a.m. like the prosecution claims.
How did she respond?
Flat denial. She said, no, I didn't search that, never searched anything like it. Insisted she didn't even know John was missing then, said she was asleep.
Did Jackson just accept that?
Not a chance. He immediately pulled out cell phone extraction data, showed her documentation, basically saying, look, here's the proof. Your phone, this search, 2:27 a.m.
Wow. How did she react to being shown that?
Your source says she looked visibly shaken, started saying things like, that's not me, suggesting maybe the data was wrong or maybe someone else used her phone.
But hadn't she told police her phone was with her all night?
Exactly. Jackson pounced on that immediately, reminded her of her prior police statement where she'd said the phone never left her side.
So right off the bat, a major contradiction.
Huge. And Jackson just kept it going, pulling up multiple statements she'd get into police, highlighting inconsistencies one after another. Then came that really pointed question.
What of that?
He looked at her and asked straight up, you've lied about this case before, haven't you?
That's incredibly direct, her response.
There was a noticeable pause, apparently. Then she said something like, I might have misspoken. She didn't admit to lying, but Jackson pushed back hard, basically accusing her. You weren't confused, you weren't tired, you were lying to protect someone.
And the implication was she was protecting the Alberts.
That was clearly the implication hanging in the air. Given her close ties to the family, yeah. The defense is building this narrative that maybe the Alberts were involved and Jen was covering for them.
Did the cross-exam also hit on the damage to Karen's SUV?
It did. Because Jen had initially said she didn't notice any damage, but then Jackson brought up body cam footage from the scene.
What did the footage show?
It apparently showed Karen pointing out the broken taillight right there at the scene, and Jen McCabe acknowledging it, saying something like, that wasn't there last night.
Another discrepancy between her memory or testimony and the video evidence.
Exactly. Jackson kept hammering these points. Courtroom testimony contradicting police statements contradicting video evidence. He basically accused her of working with the Alberts to craft a story blaming Karen.
How is Jen holding up under all this?
The composure she had during direct examination, reportedly gone. She started looking more flustered, asking Jackson for clarification more often, seemed really uncomfortable.
And then he brought up the 911 call she made.
Yes, that was apparently a really dramatic moment. Jackson played the audio of her 911 call from when they found John's body.
What was dramatic about it?
Her voice on the call was described as remarkably calm, focused, almost detached, which is completely at odds with how she described herself, hysterical, finding the body just moments before.
So Jackson contrasted her calm demeanor on the call with her testimony.
He did. He basically asked her, don't you sound a little too calm for someone who just found their friend dead in the snow?
Oof, that must have landed heavily in the courtroom.
Your source says it did. You could feel the mood shift. Jurors leaning in, looking affected. It was a powerful piece of cross-examination.
So the defense's goal with McCabe's cross-examination was pretty clear then?
Absolutely. Paint her not just as unreliable, but potentially as someone actively involved in misleading investigators and the court, trying to destroy her credibility entirely.
And if the jury doubts her?
It potentially unravels the prosecution's entire timeline and theory of the case, because so much of it relies on her account of that morning.
Okay, so after that intense focus on Jen McCabe, the trial then shifted more towards the physical scene, the body, the medical evidence.